And thank you for joining us for this very exciting panel discussion today, this morning. And I have a wonderful set of colleagues from the fraternity, both domestic and international, to give us their perspective about corporate innovation and open innovation. So it's very important to set this context. Today, if we, as startups, you have only, unless and until you are a D2C startup, you have only two large customer groups. One is government, and second is corporates, right? That's the fact of startup. You need to sell to either of the two large customer groups. And of course, government is doing their duty as representative from MeitY. I can tell you that there's a huge push on procuring from startups from the government side as well. There are a lot of initiatives that are happening, but the larger customer pool for startups is actually corporates. And today we are going to talk about how the whole corporate startup partnership can actually drive the whole growth story of startups, and not just growth story of startup, but also facilitate corporates in their journey, in their growth as well. I'll share a very interesting story. How many of you heard, interestingly, you see this newspapers today, there's a brand called Velvet on the table. And how many of you heard of Chick shampoos in Tamil Nadu, right? The 1 rupee sachet revolution story. When Kevin Care started as a startup, maybe 20, 22 years back or 25 years back, the distribution was not an easy game. And you would be surprised that distribution of Kevin Care products, the sachets, was done by Godrej, which was a larger FMCG company at that time, right? Imagine 25 years back, a large corporate like Godrej chose to support a young startup like Kevin Care, and that distribution helped them to grow and become a phenomenal success story and change the whole FMCG, from the whole sachet revolution. So what I call now the new CSR, which is the corporate startup responsibility, is becoming a very important element that we need to focus upon. So in that context, it becomes very important for large corporates to focus upon how they can engage with startups, innovators, and it is important for startups to also reciprocate with the right kind of attitude and approach to work with corporates, to collaborate, co-create, and build solutions for them, so that there is a huge positive synergy between corporates and startups. So discuss this further. We are going to have a very wonderful and a very brilliant panel put together by the organizers. Thank you for that. So we have Mr. Anil from Samsung.
Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Thank you, Anil. So, and we have Shiv Kumar from Decathlon. I'm sure if you are anything into sports, you could not miss this brand. We have Shiv Kumar from Decathlon, and we have Jimmy James from Lowe's. Again, a retail brand, international retail chain. We like amazing. Thank you, Jimmy, for being here.
Thank you.
And Ori from HEC Paris. She's going to bring in the whole enablers perspective of how the corporate innovation and open innovation is going to be driven or supported. And last but not the least, we have Mohan from Bosch, and age-old name, known as Michael Bosch. We all used to know them. Of course, there's no startup story or a starter story without the spark plug of Bosch. They are the original equipment manufacturers. So we have a wonderful set of people here. So without further ado, I'll kind of move on to kind of ask some of these panelists some interesting questions. Let me start with the lady in the panel, Ori. If I can come to you, what are your perspectives from a open innovation / corporate innovation, and how do you see organizations like HEC facilitating this bridge between large corporates and young startups?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. The main risk with corporate innovation and startups is a risk both for the corporate and the startup, which is that the corporate innovation program is not renewed, fails. This can happen for three reasons. The first is a misalignment between what the corporate program, innovation program does and the corporate main goal. The second problem is it is too slow for delivery and it makes time to have actual results and ROI. And the third risk is that it does not really have impact because too few people in the corporate are concerned. These three risks are for the corporates and for the startups. And basically, for the misalignment, what is very important is that we have a use case approach instead of more like a theme approach on how we select startups. And so it's very important that in the selection of startup, we have a real hunt for exceptional talent. And corporates shouldn't work with everyone. They should work with very specific startups that are going to be the best, basically. So HEC Paris, we are a business school. It's the top business school in Europe. And basically, we are trained to upskill the talent. And the more, even early in the selection process, you take the teams to select the project with you, and you really take the founders by the hand through the selection process, you help them align to the maximum with your corporate objectives. So basically, HEC helps on the design, on the launch, and on the run of the programs of L'Oréal, Total Energy in France, but also Meta, for example. And our role there is to make sure that we help select the right talents. And once they are selected as, okay, we're going to work together by the company, we need to make sure that these startups stay solid and are not, excuse me for the word, flaky, as this can happen sometimes. And so for that, they need to have very strong help. But that's not the corporate's job. The corporate's job is to make sure that their own customers have a very good product, and the startups can help either increase the top line or increase the bottom line. And that's it. But how to hire somebody when you don't have a big name like a corporate, how to find like other customers, how to find a business model that is strong, that is when HEC Paris intervened.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for that. If I can come to you, Mohan, Bosch has been a century-old plus company, right? It's been, and that's a proof that you are evolving, not just evolving, you're innovating to stay relevant to the market. What is, I know you have a wonderful startup studio program. Can you share your how the startup studio functions? What is that a startup can look for when they are engaging with an organization like Bosch?
Good morning, everybody. So thank you for this opportunity as well. And talking about how the startup collaborates with Bosch and how Bosch collaborates with the startup. So we have a program called as DNA. So develop, nurture, align. So there are certain problem statements, search fields defined by Bosch, which Bosch could not really move forward, or there is a strong will to collaborate on the technology side. So these search fields, when there is an alignment, then we take on board the startups towards us, and then we help them to reshape their problem statements, nurture them as well, also give internal opportunities for them to explore the business. So whether there are solutions where they could deploy. The first and foremost problem for a startup is, okay, I have a solution, where should I really deploy? Who is my first customer? So there we open our windows. Okay, let us be your first customer. You try it out, we experiment with this. And if the solution is mature, just shaping up really well, then we take them for an alignment. So that's when we jump in with more and more further opportunities for both of us, and then starts the win-win journey from there onwards.
Fantastic. I think that's a very important perspective. For startups in this room, I'll tell you one thing, the customer is your best investor. Instead of running 100 times to your investors, if you run 100 times to your customer, the investors will run after you. That much I can guarantee, right? So it's important for you to have that clarity. And if I can come to you, Shiva, from Decathlon's perspective, you are a global chain network of, could be a case study on supply chain, logistics, global networks. How does Decathlon today engage with startups, and what kind of expectations do you have in the startup ecosystem, especially if you can talk from an Indian startup ecosystem?
Perfect. Good morning, and thanks for the opportunity to be here. And very simple way, we have a dedicated program in Decathlon Innovation Lab, and we have a website and all the problem statement where what we are exploring for this year, it will be listed, and what are the future problems also listed over there. You can reach out anywhere. That's very simple way of reaching out to us. Number one. Number two, we have uh, we have opened doors for many startups just like with a bare minimum idea. We understand what they are willing to do, and we give them space to grow inside Innovation Lab. It's not like incubation, but what we give is the real problem statement, what we are trying to achieve based on the objectives of the company and the vision of the company. So it will become easy win for them because startup will know, okay, this is a problem I want to solve, and they know their strength really well, how to play, and we understand by having a deeper discussion with them. Okay, we give this opportunity, do it. Once we reach to a certain point where the solution is really good, we deploy it in our own ecosystem to understand is whether it is working. For a 3 or 4 6 months of a POC, we run it, you know, before going into real waters, so that they can take care of themselves. Once it is all done, we will go live and we go to the go to market kind of a product. It will be ready. That's how we have done, and that's how we have been doing, and it is open for anyone. Welcome all.
Thank you, Shiva. I think inadvertently he has nicely kind of given us the flow how the whole open innovation program works. You identify the problem statement, you try to solution it, and then you kind of take the support of the organization and move forward to the deployment. Jimmy, if I can come to you, you've been an entrepreneur. You've also been, now you're on the corporate side of things. So you have visibility to both sides of the set of challenges. But for the first time, I mean, if I can ask you from Lowe's perspective, what is how does this whole open innovation or corporate innovation program start? What was the expectations from the ecosystem, and how do you see this going forward?
Sure. Firstly, thanks for having me here. Just to give you a little context about Lowe's to begin with, it's the world's second largest home improvement retailer, 105-year-old company, operations in the US alone. That's why not many here would know. But it's a $90 billion company, Fortune 50 company, and we have a center in Bangalore. And we ourselves have kind of become a case study of a company in the US trying to leverage the startup ecosystem in India and globally. And the way we designed it is also a combination of consulting and plus venture capital. And one of the key objectives of why we even thought about the startup ecosystem, and we were not really thinking about it 10 years ago, but what we realized was as a large organization, what we can do is we bring scale and expertise to the ecosystem, but we are not able to run at the pace at which technology today is changing, right? AI, Gen AI, IoT, and supply chain. We are a retailer ourselves, so e-commerce. So many things were happening that by the time we think about doing something ourselves, the trend had already changed. And that's where we realized that as a large organization, because we have brand reputation, we are a public company and all that, we are not able to run at the same pace at which a startup may run. So the risk-taking ability that a large organization has is very, very limited. So do we have technical capability? We do have. We have engineers sitting, the same folks who would be sitting in startups as well. But the risk-taking ability and the appetite was what the startup ecosystem brought. And this is where we said that let us collaborate with the startup ecosystem so that when it comes to the new age technologies, what they are building and at the pace at which they are building, we cannot. So a partnership here would actually generate more mutual value than a competition. So this is where a mindset change from a build versus buy. So, earlier corporates would also always think either we build or we buy. And that's a very traditional mindset. And I'm coming from the startup ecosystem as well. And that's where it was easier for me to drive the agenda that it is not build versus buy. It is not even build plus buy. It is co-innovation, which means we build together.
And that is mutual value for both, because the startups learn from our expertise and scale and market access. We learn from their creativity and speed. So there is mutual value. With this context, we set up this program called as Catalyze. Catalyze has 3 pillars. So the name Catalyze was to catalyze, of course, our own enterprise, at the same time catalyze the startup ecosystem. So 3 pillars. One is venture clienting, where we become clients to startups, no equity investments, nothing. We have enough problem statements, and as a consulting arm as well, we make sure that we have done enough internal consulting or inside out approach to understand the key priority problem statements. We only solve problems that are worth solving. Every enterprise has enough problems to solve, and that's why you have something called as POC graveyard. When I was with the startups, all I kept doing was do free POCs or paid POCs with startups, which will not go anywhere. That's one thing that we wanted to solve here as well. So we only solve problems worth solving, and we'll talk more about it later. Second is on the equity investments, where we invest in companies only in the startups where we can also become a customer. So venture clienting and venture capital are kind of interrelated. That's how it becomes very, very relevant for the business. And that's where I get more alignment from the top and internally from business and tech as well. And the third is the ecosystem enablement, where we have mixer events happening within the organization at Lowe's, within the building at Lowe's. Last week, we had 40 startups, 20 plus VCs, industry leaders, accelerators, academia, everyone in the room. All the 5,000 employees of Lowe's India had access to them. So in a way, we are also bursting our own bubble to understand that so much is going around, so a partnership is valuable. So this is how we're also trying to build the culture of innovation. The mindset of the leadership is good, but the culture is also equally important. So in short, this is how Catalyze came into being, and Lowe's is looking at open innovation and venture capital.
Thank you, Jimmy. I think that's a very comprehensive way of looking at it, and I think it's interesting to know that you have a very structured program as well, because innovation. A lot of people think it's not a everyday eureka moment. It is innovation needs a lot of discipline and structure, right? I think that's what I gather from that. I think thank you for doing that for the startup ecosystem. Uh, Anil, if I can come to you, Samsung, a large global giant, right? Large corporations have their own size challenges and other ability to kind of how do you look at a large organization like Samsung engaging with a very nimble, very for want of better word, uh, evolving startups, or startups who are just coming out and nascent startups? How do you work with startups, and as an organization, how are you prepared to engage with this ecosystem?
Sure. Thanks, Parneet, and thanks to the StartupTN team for having me here. So this is my second time in Coimbatore. I'm really enjoying it. A very good show that you people have put together. Amazing. So when it comes to the startup program at Samsung, so our objective is pretty clear. I just wanted to focus on the objective. And it's also important that startups, when they engage with corporates, be very clear with what objective the startup has, what objective the corporate has with you. Because with any partnership to work, be it personal or with any corporate startup partnership, the value has to be both sides. If it is not there, then it's going to break. So the value that Samsung offers to startup is go-to-market. When I say go-to-market, I'm from Samsung Mobile Research. So we take your product integrated as part of the mobile devices, so it can reach millions of users. So there's a very clear value that we offer, and we have 3 aspects of this program as part of open innovation. So as you all know, Samsung Research has close to 10,000 employees in India alone, and we spend billions of dollars globally on internal innovation. So the question might be, why is an organization like Samsung looking for innovation outside, right? That's where the key is, right? We are looking for proprietary and innovative, radical innovation from the ecosystem. So whenever you're pitching to Samsung, ensure that you're building over and above than what is there in the open tech world, because we are looking for innovation that we could implement as part of products and take it to market. So there are 3 ways in which we work with startups. One is through an incubation program, where after we decide on a particular problem statement. So here also we differ, because we don't have specific problem statements that we give to you. We say that we have a Samsung camera, we have a Samsung mobile device, security. So we give you verticals to work, and we look forward to solutions from your end. We keep it really open. We want to ensure that we don't have a specific problem statement so that the proposal narrowed down. Instead, we would want the startups to innovate and come back to us saying that, hey, you're doing this, but if you do X, Y, Z using my solution, it'll be better. So this is what happens as part of the incubation program, where it's a paid incubation program, wherein we give you a 6-month time to build something on Samsung devices. Second leg is, if you cross the incubation phase, then we go into a partnership, which is again a paid partnership. Depending upon the number of devices that you plan to launch, we will pay you accordingly. The last bit is about strategic investments. If we see a long-term synergy with startups, we also open up the angle of strategic investments, where we do a check size between $1 to $5 million of investment in your company. So this is a short introduction about the program, and we'll be here through the day, and any technology companies who would want to talk to us, feel free. Thank you.
Thank you. I think one definitely going to be a big revelation for the startups in this room. There is enough money, not just from the VC's perspective. There's enough money from the corporate venture perspective as well. Because, and these are people who are going to invest not just in your as a financial investor, but also as a strategic partner to your growth of your company. I think that's a very, very important thing to take the way. If I can come to you, Ori, there are. You might have interacted with a lot of corporates, and you would have seen what sort of a corporate mindset leads to more success in open innovation than otherwise.
Thank you for the question.
For the corporates in the room, how do they need to prepare themselves?
Absolutely. Maybe I can quote two examples. I can quote the example of L'Oréal, and I can quote the example of TotalEnergies. Very different purposes, but two big successes. And then I can tell you without quoting the names what you should not do. So L'Oréal, this is their Paris program. They will have a startup program, so they will identify a startup that has managed to work very well with one of their entities. And the whole purpose of the program is to use all of the L'Oréal assets and connect them to as many people in L'Oréal as possible, so that the solution of the startup can scale from one business unit to 35 countries. So that is the purpose of the program, and we have some beautiful success stories that I can share later on how it worked well. And the reason why L'Oréal works is that the owner of the program is 100% dedicated to advertising their startups within the whole group. I think the role that you have taken, gentlemen, is such a human role, where you are basically negotiating all the time internally to promote the startups that have been selected in your programs, and that is a very important role. The other example that I would like to quote is TotalEnergies. TotalEnergies, they do not accelerate startups that they are already working with. They use their program to identify the right talents and scale-ups that will be able to help Total diversify their activity. So what they will do is that they will choose some use cases, and the best practice that I see is that they have managed to mobilize a lot of people. So you have sponsors. Sponsors are the C-level that can vouch for your initiatives, and that will be here at the kickoffs of the program, in the mid-time of the program. They will not talk individually to the startups, but they are signaling to the rest of the company, this innovation initiatives is really making a difference for the company. So that's the C-level, and TotalEnergies are being helped by the whole COMEX and the CEO, who personally, at the end of the program, looks at each pitch of the startup and then say, we buy, we don't buy. So TotalEnergies, it's different. They want to diversify their activity instead of using the services. So they want to buy the startup or not buy the startup. And it's the CEO who is involved in the decision-making at the very end. But you also have connection with directors and directors of business units who can help the startups pitch and expand in the different business units. So that's the huge strength of L'Oréal. And then finally, one thing that is super important is the experts. So what I call the experts is when the startup is like, oh, I have a problem with my payment solution. I need someone that can help me right now. And that is the strength of Meta. I didn't quote him as the example. But Meta, they have their technical AI people that are up and ready to really like help the startups. And that's also the case of another company, which is called Capgemini. So mobilizing all of these key people at every level of the company is, in my opinion, what makes or breaks a corporate innovation program.
Very true. I think innovation is everybody's responsibility in an organization. If someone tells me that I have an innovation department, then I know how much innovation they are doing. So innovation is across the board, across the roles, and is a responsibility, right? So Shiv, if I can come to you, Decathlon. Global brand again, been a very household name now in India. Can you give us any kind of success stories that the Indian startup has come into Decathlon kind of an organization and changed the way you do things, or some sort of a success story to just inspire the founders here that they can do that as well?
Thanks for the wonderful opportunity to inspire the startups, because it's very important to know to know what the corporates can offer to you. One success story I want to share is something in 2018, where the innovation lab is not incepted in Decathlon India, but still we do innovation. As you rightly mentioned, it's kind of a culture everybody should have. We started that way, and one of the startup which was, it was okay, it was running better, but the demand, the level of demand what we put give to them, make them understand their actual potential, and they created a solution for us in energy management solution. It's energy management, and that company has been acquired by one of the largest company across the globe, and we still work with them globally. That's the key. We want to hold the hand, and we make them grow, and we make them fly like anything. That's the that one single story. It's called Zenetics, is the company we started with, and now it's been acquired by Snyder. So you can see what kind of growth the company has, and I really like this startup founders who came along with us, who made all the changes what is required for Decathlon, which was the exact fit for any other market in Europe. So that's how they fly out of colors. So this one success story is enough
Really.
for the fellow startups to understand what kind of value we can create as corporates. Thank
Thank
you.
you. I think that's very important to understand. As startup founder, if you find the right corporate partner, latch onto them, be willing to collaborate and go for the long journey. You never know where it takes you, and most of the time it takes you to a very, very positive horizon. Either you could be, they can find you customers, or they can invest in you, or eventually probably even get acquired by either the own company, the same company, or somebody else in this case, right? I think it's a very wonderful example. Thank you, Shiv. Jimmy, if I were to now ask you to go back to your startup days hat, and from a founder perspective, what mindset should be, or what kind of thought process they should have when they are engaging, the POC stage, or open innovation participation in any challenges? What is that? How open they should be in a nutshell?
That's a great question. See, one is a lot of founders would just love the opportunity to do POCs with larger enterprises. It's a good thing, but at the same time, if that is the metric for you to define success to your investors or to your teams, I think you should again rethink, because what happens is you'll end up wasting a lot of time in doing POCs which go nowhere. Okay, so before you engage with with a large enterprise, you also need to ask some tough questions yourselves. Number one, you have to understand that enterprises, there is no difference between the importance of an enterprise or your own company or a startup. You both are at equal levels. You both are offering value to each other. That's the most important first step for you, because we have seen as a lot of times founders, we think, okay, enterprise, you're talking to us, that's a big deal. So whatever you say, we will do. That's not the mindset, because then you will have no bargaining power after the POC and so on. Okay. So now when the first step is when you approach an enterprise, have clarity on the problem statement. What exactly they are solving, number two, or what they are trying to solve for, how important it is, how big it is. Okay, so have an understanding of the size of the business problem. Okay, ask these questions to the team that you are connected with. Also understand the decision making unit of the enterprise. Who are you talking to? And what is the authority this person has, so that you don't waste time. The difference between 6 or 12-month sales cycles versus 3-month sales cycles is who you are talking to and the understanding of who you are talking to. Number two, also do not sell only your technology. A lot of founders I have seen, especially the tech founders, they keep talking about, hey, this is the great technology, this is AI, and today AI is so heavily abused that every sales pitch has 1,000 mentions of AI, and nowhere people talk about what is the problem your startup is solving and why is it relevant for us. So also change your pitch. So in that way, for example, we signed a 3-year deal with a startup, and also we invested in the Series B round. The whole deal was closed in 35 days. Okay, that's the pace at which we ran. And this was also because the founders were very clear on the problem they were solving, the value they were bringing. Forget about the backend technology. The backend technology came later when we had to understand integration into our ecosystem and all that. But that's the beauty of it. They made sure that they came in, they presented, and then because there's a program at Lowe's, we handholded them that, okay, we are connecting you to the right decision makers and so on, and then we were able to close the deal. But again, as a founder, be very clear about the problem you're solving, the value proposition, how big the problem is for them, and what happens after a POC. Have that conversation before you start a POC, that if the POC is successful, define success. What do you mean by POC is successful? Document it. And enterprises have processes to do so. Do not go to sign a large master services agreement before a POC. If you ask for it, every enterprise has a mini version as well, so that you don't sign or don't spend 3-4 months of legal time and money doing something. If the POC does not proceed, you would have wasted all time and money, right? So just make sure that you clarify all this before you start the POC, so that when the POC is successful, you know what is the next step and you will be able to move forward. The objective is the value you deliver to enterprise when you go into production, not the POC. Yeah. So that's one of the key areas. And also when it comes to funding, I always also, as a mentor to startups, I usually suggest them that usually try not to raise your funding only from VCs. Try also to raise something from CVCs today, the corporate venture capital arms, because as a customer and as a corporate venture capital arms, they also give you a lot of credibility when it comes to you raising the next round or also in your growth. For example, as you also mentioned, we also have connected some of our portfolio startups with 10 to 15 other Fortune 100 companies. Within 3 months now, they have 15 more Fortune 100 companies. And now you think about their valuations and their enterprise scale and their learnings from where they were to where they are.
Thank you, Jimmy. I think that's very important. The whole idea of clarifying what success really means at each stages and milestone becomes a very important part. If I can come to you, Mohan, at Bosch, there's much more than a problem statement or a POC that a corporate can offer to the startups. For the startups in the room, can you give us a perspective? What other things that they can expect from a large corporation to get them taking off on this corporate innovation journey?
That's a nice question. For example, when a startup wanted to collaborate with a corporate, I think they need to differentiate between the corporate and a VC. A VC will look for P&L. A corporate will go deep dive into the books, and the technology, like what you have it. If you are attacking a red ocean, there is no point corporates would help you to move forward, because corporates are already there, and an incremental innovation a corporate themselves can do it. So every corporate is now looking for a disruptive solution. The next 5 years in this global market is very crucial for any corporate, because the entire globe is changing towards a new tech. A deep tech is really disrupting all the corporates. So we are looking into a space of disruptive technologies. So the moment when you think you have a disruptive idea, we are there to support you. So the first step is to align on the technology front. At the same time, do not expect the speed like a VC where the corporates would take time to understand, to come back, to decide, because there will be multiple decision teams sitting inside the corporate to take a call on it. But the moment, if there is a disruptive idea behind that, and if there is a synchronization with the corporate's search fields, obviously the corporate would jump on it and they would handhold each other. So that's where we start with first handholding, and then opening up our technology space, business fields within us, our customers within you, and then we go to the next step of aligning and then bringing you on board, venturing into it, and then reaching out on a stake.
Thank you. I think that's very important to also just to add to that. Corporates can also offer distribution network. I know there's a HPCL as they have 2,000, 3,000 outlets. They can, if you really impress them and get the POC and get the solutioning going, you can get a large distribution without much of effort as well, right? Anil, coming to you as the last question, we are running out of time. If I'm assuming also there's a significant amount of tech startups here, and you have a tech center, and of course, being low, also having a tech center. How do startups engage tech centers within India, or global capability centers that we look at? How do you see the synergies between Indian tech startups and the GCCs, and helping the GCCs move up the value chain? What kind of synergies there now?
Sure, perfect. I think since being the last one to speak, I'll not take much time. But I just wanted to convey, because on the previous question as well, right? I think what should startups look for in corporates, or what is the value that we can offer? I think since I've been doing this for last 15 years now, I've got the privilege of doing this for last 15 years, working across 100 to 200 startups per year, right? And I've also looked at global companies as well. So one takeaway that I would want all of you in this room to take forward is, I think Jimmy also mentioned that part, right? So when you talk to a startup, you are on the same level. I think don't think that the corporate is at different level, startup is at as a different level, right? We are trying to work with the startup because we see a value in it. Unless and until you actually portray that value in a right way, the corporates will not be interested to work with you, right? So what I'm trying to go at is, to your question, Paneet, I think when you're approaching a corporate, ensure that you do a prep of what the corporate is. What are some of the problems that they are looking to solve? This pre-work is very important, because you cannot pitch the same way you pitch to a logistics company to a tech company. You might have the same deck. However, change your narrative. That's going to be very important. So preparation is the key. First and foremost is preparation. Ensure that you are well prepared when you go to a startup. The second is the objective. I already spoke about it. But when you work with the corporate, right, it's not about always, the success that you get with the corporate. The time that you spend with the corporate, ensure that you are able to, you go through the churn. You understand as to how you work, with the corporate. That in itself is a learning. So we have many such cases, because as corporate partnerships teams as well, out of 100 companies, we probably partner with 5 companies, right? But for the startup, the way it is valuable is, we go through, with all our experience, we kind of teach you. Or rather, it is about, we learn, and we also teach you to go through this, so that with any corporate that you go to, you already have learned. So we have many such instances where the company's not been successful with Samsung, but they have been successful elsewhere, right? We are happy for that. It's a small ecosystem. The last bit is, when you are pitching to a startup, when a startup is pitching to a corporate, I have not seen many instances where 2 or 3 startups come together and they're pitching for one problem, right? I don't know why that cross collaboration is not happening. When the corporates are ready to collaborate, we're not looking at only one solution. If the problem statement is big enough, we are open. 3 or 4 startups come together, build a more stronger solution, come to a corporate, right? That's very important. The last bit is, always work on the value aspect of it. Don't pitch your solution from the way you're looking at it. Think from an aspect as to how it will be valuable for the person who's going to adopt it. Say that, for example, you can say that, this will save X amount of dollars for Samsung, or this will save X amount of time for logistics for Lowe's. So always come from the aspect of how it's going to solve a problem for the corporate that you're pitching to. So these are my few points, and we'll be around. You can sync up with us for more such insights and trivias. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. I think that's fantastic. On a wonderful note, collaborate, co-create, and then even kind of collaborate between your peer group, which is the startup community itself, because not all problems can be solved by one startup. And if you have to come together to solve a problem, please do that. And solutioning matters, and that's what matters for the corporates. And benefit matters, which is either save time or save cost. So these are the real opportunities to kind of get the corporate innovation and open innovation going. So on that note, I think take this opportunity to thank my wonderful panelists. Really wonderful talking to you. Thank you, everyone. And time's up. Thank you so much, and look forward and wish you all the best for the rest of the day. Thank you.